And we're live. What's going on, folks? It's January 15th, 2025. Joey is inbound here. Let's see if I can loop him in. Stand by for Joey. We'll be going through the Deepin news here today and seeing. Joey, you must have a new camera because mine's not recognizing you, but here you are.
There we go.
Look
Yeah, I
at you,
couldn't
you
get the
handsome
other nice
devil.
one working.
Oh,
That's what we got.
cool. I like. Is there a haircut or do you usually wear a hat? You're looking different. No, nothing.
Yeah, we had a hat on yesterday. I should probably throw a hat on. It's a little wild right now.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
catching up to you. Yeah,
Yeah,
a little bit.
yeah. Slow but sure. I'll cut mine off soon enough. Let's see. So Onocoy news, top of the hops here is, I think I talked about this last week, but I had signed up for to use their system because we were doing the surveying our property lines. I didn't understand that there's like a $20 something or other. It's $20 a month. And then you get it's like $1 an hour after that, which I think is still way cheaper than anything else, but it took me a while to figure that out. That was kind of cool. If you want to check that out for yourself, you can totally do that. Let's see. 619. I was just saying we got rugged. Why did you stream 12 hours ago? I was roasting coffee last night. I was like, oh, I'll just jump on and stream, see if anyone's around. And no one came around. I was like, oh, we are definitely still in crypto winter. Even if it's springy. Let's see. Anyone, which was Ator, I always think of him as Ator first, is I got my 6 set up. They're in the garage. I got the new switch. I think I sent a picture to Joey of my little Ubiquity switch with these 6 things or 4 things plugged in. Or maybe I sent some like in progress stuff to it. Super fun to do that. They're all on their own public static IPs. So as far as I can tell, that is a legit thing to do. Although the picture certainly looks like the old Helium gaming pictures of like 30 miners next to each other. So I was like, I got to be careful about sharing that because some asshole is going to be like, the Crystal King's cheating. This is bullshit. Anyone also announced that they have an anonymous agent plugin. I dropped the link to their Twitter on that. So that's kind of cool if you're doing anonymous agents. Helium had some big news in this Grayscale thing, although I think this is pretty older news. Grayscale had said, hey, HNT is now an assets under consideration. I saw that just announced on Discord just yesterday, but I feel like that's like a week or 2 old. But basically the big takeaway there for my buddy JR in Colorado who's watching is like, not financial advice, but it just makes HNT a little bit more likely of a thing to do well. Totally separate from the utility of it. But I think it's just a good sign that the big investors are looking at this stuff and saying that's cool. Hivemapper had a small beef on Twitter with DIMO. I think they both erased that and came to their senses, which was good. I don't like to see these guys fighting. There's no fucking sense in doing that. This is like a tiny goldfish bowl, and we need to be helping each other, not pointing out where the strong man stumbles. So I think they cleaned that up, and then they've got more new bursts in Southern California and Arizona. I saw also that Hivemapper had been doing some pretty cool releases like, hey, this is what the fire damage was like from the fires in LA, which was the big news and I guess Joey's neck of the woods. It's kind of not quite halfway between us, a little closer to me, but the big LA fires this week were a pretty big deal. Let's see. DIMO. Okay, so these guys were super busy at CES. If you were there, I'm sure you saw them. They were doing demos of everything, handing out hats, the rest of it. They also did a transparency announcement about tokens going to a new market maker. So I think it's just generally good stuff going on there. As far as like saying, hey, this is what we're doing. Don't worry too much about it. In Dabba news, Dabba's got the Dabba Lite tracker is live. The link is down in the description. For Hivemapper, when are they going to ship the B? I don't know. 619. Soon come. So if you want to check out the Dabba Lite stuff, and I think it's like seeing how many stations are on the network. I just looked at it really briefly this morning. Again, it's just good to see these guys working and kind of building in public. The Wingbits news, actually they had some big news, is they improved the UX and they've got new station indicators on the map. What's up, Enviromine? So I think the station indicators are where folks have said, hey, I'm going to put one in here, or I'm waiting for hardware to be deployed. So just better network planning. I still think there's a fair amount of work that's got to go into that. Oh, wow, you drove 5 hours last Saturday for a honey burst in the Inland Empire damn. That's a lot of driving for a burst. I should put some bursts up in San Diego near Paleo Treats. Keep that map fresh near us. So Wingbits has a new map. I forgot to put the link on there, but I think it's app.wingbits.com. Spexi, of course, because of the, funnily enough, the Canadian plane drone strike in the LA Flyers. So one of the super scoopers hit some, I don't know, unauthorized drone, something like that. Some jackass was flying a drone, hit the wing of the plane. Plane goes, doesn't go down, but goes down for maintenance. And now Spexi, which is a Canadian company, says, hey, just letting you know the DJI FlySafe update will not affect Spexi because Spexi was already basically playing by the rules. So the fly update, I think on DJI side was you can't be flying in the fucking firefighting planes, something like that. That's probably the big takeaway. And Spexi saying, relax, we were already way ahead of them. Let's see, what else have I got? WeatherXM news. They are doing two big things. They're doing a platform migration progress, and they're doing an LNS migration. I did try to get them to come over to the Meteo Scientific platform, but they didn't do that. I'm sure Paul would have been like, hey man, we got to talk about this, this first. But they're sticking with the one they're with, which is Lone Star, formerly 1663. And so just expect that your WeatherXM station, I think the expectation I would set, I'm not an official whatever mouthpiece or whatever for them, but my expectation is that weather station are going to suck for the next week or two, and then they'll be better than they were. And you probably won't notice anything if you just use your weather station normally like me and look at it kind of twice a day. The last piece I've got, this is kind of pertaining more to us and our stuff, Joey, is we got our new Meteo Scientific logo. And the draft tutorial is live. So if you want to follow it, I finished up the script for installing everything last night. So it should work at the very end of it. I still have to add the how you add this to Home Assistant. I'm kind of assuming at this point that anyone who's going to use Home Assistant probably doesn't need this tutorial, because to use Home Assistant, you already have to be a little bit nerdy, and nothing in this tutorial is like, oh my God, this is brand new, other than what I'm seeing is that the Cloudflare tunnel use is kind of new for some folks. So that's pretty cool. But if you want to go and check that out, the draft is there. It's got the big warning at the top saying don't follow it. I think it's more like follow at your own risk is what I should do. And then 619 is telling me that the drone strike was fake. I don't think it was fake, dude. I mean, I think you could probably be an idiot and fly a drone in anything. So yeah, that's my take there. And then Joey, we do have this special background just for you. So I'm waiting for you to tell me that something is in the can. And in 8 minutes, that's almost all the news. Remember to, if you're deploying, what is it, Deep in Miners, check out Flywheel Systems. Their link is down in the description and their logo is down in the bottom right of my screen. Check them out. They do a super good job of deploying Deep in Miners all over the planet. That's Deep in News. Joey, what's going on, dog?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Feeling fired up.
Yeah.
I wish I don't know, the continuity camera works great when it does, and then it sometimes just doesn't want to go.
Oh, that's the thing that like zooms in and out on you?
Yeah, well, it uses the iPhone camera, so it usually looks beautiful, and
Ah,
then
okay.
yeah, it just doesn't go all the time.
It's funny. I think of myself as like completely not vain, but I am a sucker for like making sure this camera works versus my computer camera. I don't like, it's stupid, but it's just like, I want to
Um,
look good, damn it.
this thing's like full on potato quality up here.
It
So
looks
yeah,
great, but yeah. It's like the stuff
like
that I
a
think for us is low.
green. Like
Yeah.
it's a yeah. Um, anyway, yeah, that's God. We're already in Wednesday, so the week's flying by, but
Yeah. I've got
a
some
lot of stuff going.
newsy stuff to talk about, but what do you got going on? Tell me what's going on
Well, so you
on your
mentioned
end.
the LA fires.
Yeah.
And you and I were kind of talking over the weekend. We're
Yep.
trying to chase down contacts. It is, uh, it's been I guess, a huge learning experience
Yeah.
trying to get these things deployed.
Yeah.
And so, when I say these things, like I had these beacon rigs, basically all ready to go. We had a couple left over from the North Carolina deployments. There's actually some press out there now that talks a little bit about that and the impacts for
Yep.
the organizations out there. Love to see it. Um, but yeah, I with the weekend rolled around, I was like, all right, these things aren't out there yet. I'm gonna box them up and I'm gonna drive the 12-hour round trip to get these things in somebody's hands. Um, but
But it turns out
got,
it's not that easy.
got some intros with some firefighters, had some like city official conversations, but people are stamped. It is not an easy thing to get these things in the right place. So ultimately didn't end up getting down there. But
Yeah.
those rigs are here and ready to go. But then yesterday had like I think a really cool experience. The mobile network is one that we're trying to grow. It's not everywhere yet.
Yep.
The IoT network, is everywhere. LA's got fantastic coverage, right?
Yep.
Like you
Yep.
can't find a corner of LA that doesn't have one of these things,
Yep. This is a
have some kind
cool
of coverage.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. And so out of nowhere, we got tagged in this post that was this company Torch that builds a fire detection sensor.
Yep.
And it's got like a thermal camera on it, it's got air quality, it's got temperature, humidity, um, and it's running that entire thing over the IoT network.
Yep.
And so these guys are like jumping around with the Park Service, going and standing these like you just data dense points.
Yep.
And then that's all powered by all of the gateways that people have deployed in LA. So that is like the IoT network at work. It is the thing that the people watching the show built.
Yeah. It's
And
pretty
it's
rad.
making an impact in LA. And so they're using these things to detect flare-ups.
Yep.
As the embers blow out, start up new fires, they get an immediate alert. There's a public dashboard that they've stood up to like show this to everyone. Um, 619, you should probably sign up for their thing if you're roughly in the LA area. I can't remember if you're San Diego or LA.
San Diego. Yeah.
Um, uh, but they are so Teague. They are just LoRaWAN. It is just backhaul straight into Helium, and they did that all on their own. We'd never talked to that team before, and this is something that the guy built as a high school science project after the Napa fires. So was that 4, 6 years ago, something like that?
Yeah.
Uh,
Geez, that was a while. It seems like there's last year, but yeah, they were a while ago.
yeah, I was just like, I think that was like 2018, 2019. I don't,
Yeah.
anyway, that's
A while
it
ago.
was years ago. Yeah, time flies. Um, but yeah, he took the whole thing and scaled it into a business. He got like an awesome platform together. It looks great. It looks like solid hardware, and they are out there just absolutely scrambling to get these things set up as fast as possible. And so they're focused on LA, make sure the flare-ups don't happen, and then they'll scale that out to California at large. Um, so I spent my weekend trying to make some impact, and it turns out I didn't have to because the network did it for us, which was,
That's a
pretty sweet.
cool
Yeah,
way to put it. Yeah. I think the
yeah.
one thing I didn't think of, and I should have known this because I've seen Sean, which is who we were talking, at least one of the conversations you were having,
Mhm.
we were talking to is she's the lady that does the jet ski rescue and post disaster stuff. Um, she's told me this before and I just didn't even think of it, is that when the disaster hits, you have to immediately be making contacts then because within like a day, if you're even 24 hours late, like you're not getting in, which
Yeah.
was, I think your experience because they just get overwhelmed and it's like, it's too late. And so it's super cool to have everything set up, but you've got to have the contacts either within the first like 6 to 12 hours, or, months before where you're like, hey, if you have something going on, let me build those connects now. So
Yeah, and it makes total sense, right?
yeah,
Like you get your system working and you don't want to throw a pebble in the works. You don't
yep,
need somebody showing up with a shipping container full of toilet paper because that got donated or whatever, right?
yeah,
That's just it's going to be in the way. It's like a whole thing you got to figure out.
yeah,
So it totally makes sense that they get in there, they get operational, and then they just lock in. So we'll use the opportunity. I'll follow up with these contacts after the fires,
yep,
handled. We get a couple of rains, and then they'll know where to hit us up when the next one comes up.
yeah, yeah. I think it might be an interesting thing to think about. How do you do like massive outreach on your end to every department, every like basically municipal department in America, saying like, hey, this is what we have. This is what
Yep.
we can do. I want you to put this in your like whatever pay attention to later folder, and at least yeah, build the connections early. Don't need the joke about the TP. Don't joke about the need for a TP. Come on, dude. We're in San Diego. You can wipe your ass on any bush anywhere. This place is. It sounds terrible to say it that way, but I've done a lot of fucking running in the backcountry, and there's always something to clean your ass up with. That is way
Rocks are
better than
great.
fucking toilet paper.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. The sensor should be placed at Mount Laguna. I pick up groundwater from that area and it's dry out there. Yeah. That would be 13 SR. Do I know you B13? I'm assuming that we've talked because you're talking about local places. Mount Laguna is East San Diego, and I've done a fair amount of running and mucking about out there. We
Let
got a
me
big
pull
power
out
legs out
the
there.
pull up the link for this
Oh,
torch
for the
thing. We
torch
can
thing?
throw it
Yeah.
in somewhere. Yeah,
Enhance.
because they have a sign up thing on there, and they want they've got a truckload of these things in LA right now. They want them deployed. Um,
Yeah.
Here we go.
I don't know if P13's Derek 619. I'm not sure. Let's see. I think I've just been so heads down in this MetSci thing, Joey, that like I've paid attention to almost nothing else. This has been all consuming, but it's been rad. And I've been thinking a ton about how do I make. It's funny because I'm doing like all the nerd work, and then Lee and I are listening to a bunch of marketing stuff for Paleo Treats, and it's like, oh, how do I apply the marketing stuff to MetSci? And it's building, thinking about building who is the customer, right? Who's going to pay 10x DC for this stuff and just to use it. I've got a couple folks who spend about $100 a month on credits. So that's rad to see that. I think there's 100, there's 150 that I see coming pretty much every month. And then there's a bunch of like fives and tens, and I don't think there's any ones. So
We got to re-up it, by the way. I meant to remind you.
Oh, we got
Your
to
your escrow. Yeah,
top it off. Okay. I will, I'll put
yeah.
that in my notes. I just looked at it the other day. It was okay, but I think it's probably getting low. But I was thinking like, how do I make it way more useful? And there's a couple things. One thing is I'm going to talk to Paul about the ability for me to do a little bit, to have like basically what I think of as I might be using the wrong word, a component on the front end of it. So when you log in, it looks slightly different and it shows the gateways that your sensors are hitting the most. Right now on ChirpStack, when you log in, because the ChirpStack stock implementation is basically built for private LNSs and not something like Helium, there's a bunch of like useless information on there about gateways because you can't display anything. But I think with a little bit of nerd work on the back end is we could display, hey, these are the gateways that your sensors are running all their data through. And that might be a little bit useful. But I was thinking, how do I make MetSci way more useful for the people who are using it? And so I've been spending some time thinking about that and how to locate those people and talk to them and serve them in a way that's like way better than what they could do if they had to stand up their own LNS and muck around with it.
Yeah. I think there's a ton of opportunity to start customizing. Like we got it out there. Now we can spend a little time iterating. I think
Yeah.
it'd be pretty cool.
I had hired a guy early on, this guy, Andre, to do some customization, and he showed me all kinds of rad things. And then I talked to Paul, and I think Paul he's had such a workload. Then he's like, dude, I'm not doing any customizations right now. I'm just trying to get this thing to work. But I think we're in a point where it's settled down a bit, and now it can
Well,
be made more useful.
give Paul 15 more days to get through all of his Lone Star migration help. So
Okay.
he's been in the background a little bit, making sure things go smoothly there.
Oh, I didn't know he was doing that. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because as far as I can tell, like if a bus hits
'Cause
Paul, the Helium
the
network is
game-
fucked.
right. Yeah, he's spent more time operating LNSs, I think, than probably most people in just even the lower WAN ecosystem.
Got it. Yeah. I think when I was talking to okay, BSR B13SR, so we don't know each other yet. Oh, Riverside, cool. And you're running source chain or source stuff in your truck, and you're going between Vegas and San Diego. Cool, super cool. Yeah, if you're in San Diego, let me know. I mean, we're right off the 15. Yeah, when I was talking to Manos at WeatherXM and making my kind of lame and failed bid to take over the WeatherXM fleet on Media Scientific, I was like, hey, Paul runs it, so you know it's going to work. He's like, yeah, I've been following Paul since way before Helium. Like I used his stuff for when we were doing kind of my Hello World first LoRaWAN stuff. So yeah, Paul's been around a long time.
Yeah, yeah, he's probably hacked on just about every IoT chip out there. Taking what is it? Yeah. Anyway, fun stories with Paul. He's got a whole crew that they tinker with this stuff with.
Yeah. Let's see. What else have I seen? Good.
Well, I threw a link in the chat for this
for the
torch sensor.
Yeah.
So that second link is probably the better one. And
Got it.
then if people scroll down to the bottom of the thread, there's a sign up form. So if you're in LA, hit that sign up form.
Okay. Cool. And we'll put that thing on there. Vasya Trem. Badass. Yeah,
And
I
you
thought
could
that was
probably
super cool out of nowhere.
It was absolutely. And they're Bay Area based team. So when they're back, I'm going to try and catch up with them. We'll,
Oh, hey.
figure out how we can help support them a bit.
What are you guys doing?
Yeah, exactly. Um,
Yeah.
so
That's
yeah, good stuff.
rad. I think maybe I'll see if I can get one here in San Diego because it's an interesting thing to think about the assets that the Helium community has. We've got these poles and antennas everywhere. Is
Mhm.
we're probably a pretty good fit for that, and that's why they're using it. Not only
Yeah,
using the network, but also saying, hey, I mean, I've got this pole in my house. It's 23 feet above the roof. I'm sure that some kind of sensor up there is going to do a pretty good job.
and they might even be operating on Medio Scientific, and you just don't even know it.
That would be rad. Yeah.
You're one of a couple of those LMSs out there. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the other thing I've been thinking about doing on that is updating the description on the GitHub, which I think is how people find us.
Mm.
Oh, can I throw some links in the GK Discord? Yeah, I will throw that. So 619, you want this same link in the GK Discord? Yeah, I could do that. Stand by. So let's see. So we did on the AF side, we did a pretty cool cursor demo this last week. That link is now in the Discord. 619. We did a pretty cool cursor demo on how one of my buddies who'd been using it for a while was using it. And I think the big takeaway piece there for folks who are using it or who had been looking at it and thought it was like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to put a bunch of words in a bunch of people's mouths. But basically, folks who are actual nerds were like, cursor's stupid. It's for like lamos who need help with AI. And then they watch this demo and they're like, oh shit, it's actually pretty useful for anyone. And I'm 100% putting words in people's mouths there. They're probably way cooler than that in how they thought about it. But some of the takeaways were they didn't realize the ability for Cursor to reference docs and how easy that was. And that was the thing that also blew my mind is that when you're using Cursor to do all this stuff is you can just pull in docs. Some of them are already in there, but some of them you're just like, hey, look at this docs dot whatever it is, Grafana website, and it'll pull all those in. So yeah, pretty
Yeah.
cool.
I've had a couple of really good run-ins with GPT generated stuff lately, and it's just like I can describe the thing in a paragraph and it writes the whole thing, and I can parse through it like faster than it would take me to write the one function. I can write the whole thing. It's
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that.
I think the
It's
other,
nice to know the output, what the output's going to look like for some of those little like just quick one-off stuff.
yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting. Maybe Ido is the one that's doing, I think Ido is doing like the, making it easy to take your sensors and get paid for the data your sensors are producing. So Ido might be an interesting connect with Torch. And they do a bunch of stuff with AI as well, if I'm remembering right. I don't think they just slapped it on. I think they're actually using it. But this was kind of an interesting piece with, and maybe it's something we add to this deep in overview of like the use of AI for normal people, because I'm using the thing all the fucking time. And I'm assuming that most people at like our general level are also using it all the time. And so it seems like for me, I'll use it and use it and use it and then kind of stumble on this thing and put it out on the GK in the GK Discord somewhere. And someone will be like, oh yeah, I was doing that 3 months ago. I'm like, shit, I've got to put together some kind of clearinghouse for information where like this latest thing that I was doing yesterday, because I started getting rate limited on Cursor, even though I was paying the $20 a month or whatever their first thing is. They're like, hey, you're on slow mode, pay more for faster. And so I started taking the inputs that I would have put into Cursor and putting them out into either Grok or ChatGPT, and I'm paying for both of those as well. So it's like $60 a month. Seems like a lot, but I also think $60 a month for like an almost unlimited amount of advice from LLMs, pretty good deal.
Yeah.
And so what I'd like to do is stitch together all three of those. So Grok, O1 or whatever on ChatGPT, and Claude, I think 3.5 Sona on Cursor, and basically like this is my dream is say, here's my problem. Can you three talk amongst yourselves and then provide me something good,
Hmm.
good back? I think that's one of the next things we're going to see. So
Yeah. And the space moves so fast. I was talking to an AI researcher that was probably a year and a half ago.
mm-hmm.
And the whole thing that they were trying to assemble is like you could give an LLM a problem, and then you would tell that LLM to check its problem.
Yeah.
And you would just like iteratively work
Yep.
through that process, and it would build and build and build and build to get you your sort of final result.
Yep.
And I think leveraging the couple of other LLMs to say, like, does this look right? Like you literally just like plain text take this response and see if it looks right. And
Yep. And that's what I was
yeah.
doing with Grok is I would take the response from GPT and be like, hey, what needs to get fixed here? And then I tried to have Grok write some stuff, and it just ran out of, I'm sure there's a word for it, not context, but like basically whatever its window was, and it would just stop kind of halfway through this, 800 or 1,000 line function or script I was trying to write.
Elon throttled, yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it just may be a restriction of these LLMs, but it did make me think quite a bit about, there's a couple things that I'm thinking now. One of these is that every week before we get on, Joey, I just take like 15 minutes before this and I look through the Discords and the Twitters usually, and that's it, of what's going on in Deepin. Like that's how I do this show. So for the first 7 minutes, that's like the regurgitation of the previous 15 to 20 minutes. And then me generally paying attention and talking to founders and whatever throughout the rest of the week. But most of the information just comes out of that. And I've been thinking, shit, I could probably do a way better job if I built my own private like news aggregation service. So again, here's like me describing my magical bullshit, and this will take me fucking months to do, but maybe with the Devin and Cognition, it'll take me a lot less time. But if I could have a piece that looks at every Discord that I'm already looking at, so there's 20 or 30 of them that I pay attention to, and looks at their websites and looks at their X feed, and then also looks at their Telegram and says, okay, this is what these people are talking about. Like, here are the news points. And then as it grows in its memory, it starts to say, okay, these guys talk about the same thing every week. You don't need to re-announce that this has happened. But this other piece is new. And then also looking at all the different crypto token prices and seeing if there's any, basically like alpha
Exciting.
or whatever coming out of that. So,
Yeah. And then I can be an AI too. And so I'll keep my extra
yeah,
fingers.
yeah. So it's like, I think that'd be super cool if I, came in and instead of like me looking through this stuff manually and missing things and not making some connection, is saying like, hey, here's a one page of all this stuff. Cool. This is what I'll read. This will be super useful for people who watch State of the Networks. And also pretty obviously is a service that I could sell and say like, look, if you wanted to generate your own at any time or just subscribe and get something like a daily piece or the ability to log in and look at it daily and see what the 8 o'clock news is. Maybe that's interesting.
It's like that presidential report that they allegedly get every morning, whatever.
Yeah.
Here's what's going on. Yeah.
Allegedly.
I don't know. Everything I hear, nobody reads those. So, yeah. So.
It seems like, I always laugh when people are like, Elon's so stupid or Trump's so stupid. Not that Elon's the president, or Biden's so stupid. Like, why aren't they thinking about this? And wherever you are on Biden being in control of his mental faculties or not, I just think it's super fucking dangerous to bet against any of those people because the likelihood that they have more information than you is almost 100%.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it just turns out that most of this stuff is really complicated, right?
Yeah.
You talk about the fires in LA. It's like, why weren't they flying the planes? You can't fly a plane when it's 100-degree or 100-mile-an-hour winds. It's just,
endlessly complicated. So I do.
If you think it's dumb in a paragraph, it probably means you're not fully understanding the thing. So,
yeah. So I wish I get those presidential reports because that'd be fucking great to read through them and be like, oh, this is why you did this. Because there's this thing that I didn't know either because it's super secret or just because I don't have the bandwidth to pay attention to everything. And the United States of America has bandwidth to pay attention to almost everything.
Right.
So
listening.
Yeah. God bless those listeners. The other thing I thought about, Joey, we're kind of on this AI kick, was we've seen the ability to interact with LLMs and just, text to text. So you write something, they write something back. We're seeing now that there's text to video and then video to text. So you can take a YouTube like this and put in a text, or you can say like, hey, make me a video of a kangaroo on the moon or whatever the thing is, the donkey or the horse on the moon, whatever the astronaut thing is. I think what we're going to see, and this will take longer, but I bet in the next year, maybe year and a half, you're going to see either voice or text, which are right now pretty interchangeable, to hardware. So you're going to say like, build me a sensor that does this. And as long as you can describe it, you will get something in the mail 2 weeks later that is the thing you described.
That'll be great. Yeah.
Hardware may no longer be hard. Now that's me like dreaming and it's full of shit. So that may be wrong.
No, you're 100% right, I think. There's so much great like open source stuff out there, and 99% of the time you're designing something, you're not doing like a whole new PlayStation or something, right? Like
Yeah.
you just want this thing to work with this thing, and it's an already solved problem, and you just need to Lego those things together.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. No,
yeah.
it makes me think I want to get back to something I was doing a while ago, which was weather stations that are. I've got. Do I have one? Yeah, I've got one in a box back there, with no moving parts that are on helium. So there's weather stations with no moving parts that exist right
Mhm.
now. There are weather stations on helium, and then there's some other weather stations. I forget the name of the thing out there where the thing that they always bum me out on the flyer was it put the weather station on a picnic table, and I was like, dude, you can't fucking do that and collect good data. But it's got no moving parts. Oh, you think a YouTuber that you follow has done that? Like this has been done. Dirk and I did this with the Helium bridge. This was the whole point of the Helium bridge, but it's complicated and it's a pain in the ass, and it's hard to take. Let me see if I. Fuck, I'm stuck. Stuck by my carpet. I got trapped. Um, this thing,
Yep.
whatever this is, this EcoWit WS80, and
Which is like a 60, $80 weather station. Is that
yeah,
right?
yep, 80. I think it's $80. SkyX, thank you, 619. That's the one that was on the picnic table. Um, yeah, is I want the ability to take that weather station, and ideally it would just get delivered to me with LoRaWAN connectivity and nothing else. So this is kind of my voice or text to hardware dream. Is I say, hey, take the WS80. I'm sure the specs are online somewhere, and I'm part of a Discord that does a ton of hacking on those things. And say, make me one that's LoRaWAN, where I just it comes in and I get it's like the S2120 from Seed,
Hmm.
and I just have the ability to make that thing kind of custom to me and say, look, I don't need Wi-Fi on it. I'll never use it, so you can decrease the power there. I don't need this, but this is what I do want. And then I
Hmm.
also want this one other thing, like whatever, a fucking heat or smoke detector or whatever. And we start to see like a proliferation of really customizable devices. That's super exciting.
Yeah. And I think we're starting to see more the proliferation of these LoRaWAN native devices.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this torch thing that we were talking about is a great example of that, right? Like it takes a little bit of a new cohort of builders to be thinking more outside of the Wi-Fi Bluetooth box. Um,
Yeah.
but when they do, like the results work. And whether it's a fire detection sensor or a weather station, those are just like two incredibly like perfect use cases for leveraging a network like Helium that is
Yep.
just out there and like works on a top of a 20-foot pole.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm so psyched with everything. I think the thing I don't have enough of is time. It's like that
Yeah.
is the
I feel you. Yeah.
giant limiting factors. Like fuck, I just do not have enough time to get all this stuff done and to move fast enough. So I think
Well,
it's the
and
other.
that's why we love the LLMs, right? And that's why we want the hardware thing. It's like, well, I can move fast on software, but now I want to build like I was playing around with that Seed Studio LoRaWAN module,
Mhm.
Zhao one, and it's a perfect form factor for me to go start plugging that into a couple of things that I've wanted to build. It's, small enough dev board. But now I need to go and integrate the GPS and do some motion sensing and put a light in there. And so it's like, I know how to do all that stuff. It's just time, right? You got to
Yeah.
go sit down and
Yep.
Fusion or KiCad or whatever and map all that stuff out, have the PCB built, do a test fit, like all that. It's just, um, I don't know, but make an LLM, give me an STL, fire it off on the 3D printer, plug it in, make sure it fits, and then get a full complete part
Yeah.
assembled and made and
Yeah, yeah, I
delivered.
think and all
I'd be
these things
happy.
get stitched together now. Like I'm guessing, you or Travis can figure out how to do this. It just takes you time. The,
Yeah.
and that will be automated within the next. My guess is year and a half, and that's just a guess. Like that's not backed by anything. Don't be like, oh, that guy's an idiot, doesn't know what I'm talking about. Like I'm fucking telling you, I don't know what I'm talking about. Um, the other thing is, it's not just a function of time. Is that LLMs have enabled me to do things that I couldn't, not couldn't. That would, I guess, in one sense, it's a function of time. That would take me years to learn. Like if you look at
Mhm.
the Medio Scientific piece, the tutorial that is right now. So you can hit the link on the description, look at that thing. There's a ton of stuff in there. There's a script in there that in 2019 Andreas Spiess did a thing on like this thing is like super difficult, and here's how to do it. It's putting together the Grafana, Node-RED, and InfluxDB. Some guy had written a thing literally called the script to do just that, and he's still updating it. I did that with these LLMs, and it's taken me whatever it is, 4 weeks of fucking around, and I think the time devoted to that script is probably 30 hours on my end. And that's just me going back and forth with LMs. Super inefficient. I'm sure that you or anyone who kind of speaks the language would be like, oh yeah, that's what this thing fucked up. Now I'll tweak it. I don't know any of that stuff. I still don't know any, like if you said, hey, write the simplest thing in Python, no idea. But I built this fucking script with these tools. And so I think there's one piece where it's like, it makes people who are competent ideally faster or more efficient, although I'm seeing in some chats that I'm on Discord that it doesn't. They waste more time is what the stats show. But it certainly enables folks like me who don't have that skill set, but have this, maybe it's not the well-developed skill of clearly defining what you want and then knowing whether or not what you're getting, the output is correct or not. Massive enablement.
Yeah. And I found it to catch even bugs in my description. The thing that I was using O1 for the other day was I needed to hit an API repeatedly to get a bunch of data. And I needed to check if a particular value was null, but this other value was greater than 0, retry because something didn't work right.
Yep.
And it's like, hey, that could go forever. I'm going to put a max retry of 10 in there. And it's like, oh, yeah, thank you, O1. Like I didn't think that far ahead, but in the process of it writing the thing, it flagged it and just put it in there for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a little thing. And sure, if I'd written it, I would have done it, or I would have run it. And then I'm like, oh shit, it's a loop and I'll go fix it. But yeah.
Yeah. No, it's like,
it's a good multiplier.
it's crazy. The script is 1,000 lines of code. I don't understand a single line, but I know that when you run it, it will install these 3 services on your Pi and they will work. Like that's fucking huge. Spit out your credential files. And I'm sure I've got to talk to a couple folks and say, hey, would you take a look through this or run it and see if I'm exposing people to like giant security risks? I don't think I am, just because the only touch point is through a Cloudflare tunnel. And the way that the tunnel is set up is you have to have an auth token. You have to basically have secret code to get into it.
Well, you can ask Grok to try and get in there, and so you pit them against each other now.
Oh yeah. I guess
find the holes.
Like, hey, can you find the security holes in this thing? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Although I don't think that they are like. There's a way to ask that question where I'm like, hey, I'm not asking you if the NSA can get in. I'm asking you if like a normal person follows my tutorial, are they opening themselves up to some script kiddie in Russia? Like that's what I don't want. If it opens you up to the NSA or the equivalent, the Chinese equivalent, like fuck, nobody beats those guys.
You're already toast.
Yeah, they're already in there. If they want your LoRaWAN data that bad, it's gone.
Yeah.
So
tracking my sauna.
Yeah, I put your sauna. I think there's a link in there. Maybe there's a link in the tutorial. Is the sauna hot or not? It certainly references.
Oh, I saw that actually. It was up in the in the header there.
In the intro piece, and I looked at it, but there's no. I think I got a warning that the site is not secure. So.
Yes. Because I did not feel that my sauna data was of critical importance to put SSL on.
Shouldn't that be pretty easy to make it secure with like a Cloudflare thing? Where you just host on Cloudflare?
The problem is
give you an SSL?
So yeah, I could. What I ended up doing to host the website is I just stuck a single static HTML file in a S3 bucket, and that's the website.
Okay.
And so there was no SSL on there. If I put it on CloudFront or something like that, I'm sure it would go, but it worked.
Yeah. And maybe the downside of hosting it, what I've been doing is hosting all these like sites on GitHub pages because it's free and pretty easy, and then using Vercel. Yeah. But there's a limitation there that you can't do like a bunch of interaction.
I mean, the sauna site has it's literally a single file.
Yeah.
The whole thing. Yeah. There aren't even any graphics. I just used emoji. So it was
There's no reason to
about as
pay for
bare
SSL.
bones as I could get. Yeah.
Yeah, so this thing, like, you don't have to pay for SSL with Cloudflare, at least. And I feel like a Cloudflare fanboy at this point, but I'm so fucking impressed by what they're doing because everything is so easy and they build everything in. And for $12 a year for the domain, which is the basically the cost price. I'm sure it's not quite the cost, but whatever. You get all this stuff and you can make these secure sites that have whatever it is that you want on them. So
Yeah. I want to go deeper. I'm excited to try your tutorial because the tunnels thing isn't something I've even looked at yet. So I
yeah,
think that'll open up a lot of stuff thinking about, Home Assistant and stuff that you want to do
yeah.
on a
And there's I
device
didn't
that sits in my
realize this
garage. Like, yeah.
either, is that I think you build one tunnel, and I think it's a tunnel per device on your network. I think they say one tunnel per network, but that doesn't seem right to me. And then
Hmm.
in that tunnel are routes. So you'd have like to gristleking.dev or to medioscientific.com, a route would be the same, would map in my mind to a subdomain. So node-red.medioscientific.com goes to that, whatever that service on your Pi. And so it means you have
Well,
this like one secure tunnel. And then inside that tunnel, there's a bunch of these straws that I think of as routes. And each of those routes goes to a different service. And so you can really like neck down, here's who gets access to this. Here's who gets access to that. Here's who can even come in the door of the tunnel. And then
hmm.
each, yeah.
Well, and maybe it's worth breaking down a little bit, like what the problem is that you're trying to solve, because you've got basically the LNS sits on a server out in the world somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
and it's getting data, and then you want to push that to a place that is inside your own house. So you want to like have that database running on the computer in front of you.
Yep.
And so that's kind of your tunnel thing. And then you do all your stuff in there, have your dashboards. You're just not running it on a server out in the Amazon land.
Yeah. Yeah. The goal was to say, hey, for a non-technical user, if you can spend about $150, so if you can get a Raspberry Pi and you can get a device to work on whatever LoRaWAN sensor you use, for in my case, it was a Bus Pirate, you can get cheaper stuff that's on there. You'll need a separate SSD because there's a ton of IoT data. And if you're trying to write to
Mhm.
the Raspberry Pi, the SD card on the Pi constantly,
It's
LLMs, GPT
roasted.
has told me
Yeah.
it'll break it. So it's like, all right, cool. What's a better way? And they're like, oh,
Right.
just get a little SSD. And so there's one on like Amazon for $20. Oh, you got one in the
This is my why do
your
you censor that? The
Raspberry
Raspberry
Pi
Pi
SBC.
box.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
God, we all have one, although mine doesn't look quite as organized as yours. I need a,
I've been working on the organization. This setup here, highly recommend.
yeah,
That needs its own tutorial.
it
Yeah.
looks rad. I don't think I have the space for that. Yeah, so that was the thing, was like, hey, if you can spend $150 and that includes the domain, so you get this, basically you get your own service for a year, and then for following years it would be $12 a year for the domain on Cloudflare. You can have not only your own dashboard, but you could share a dashboard with other people publicly. So you could say, go
Mm.
to whatever dashboard.mydomain.com and
Oh,
see
so you're
whatever it is that I
tunneling.
want you to see.
So I only told half of the story. So you're getting that data into your Raspberry Pi, but
Mm-hmm.
then you can serve that back to Cloudflare and have like a total like public facing dashboard or something.
Yep. And
Very
Grafana
cool.
has this thing now that's a little bit new where they're not letting you do a bunch of customization, but they're making that much easier. So basically what happens is a Cloudflare route will map to a public Grafana URL that they create for you. So you'll go to whatever dashboard.medioscientific.com and that will be going through a Cloudflare route, but it will end up at this whatever Grafana served link, which means that you
Okay.
can't do like a bunch of customization shit on the public facing dashboards, but you can do enough. And I think the intent of the tutorial was not to help someone build like their own dashboard business. It was to say, let me show you every step of the way. And now you can imagine whatever it is that you want to do. And I'm writing this. I think there's a buddy of mine. He lives down the street from me. His name's Adrian. And I always think like I'm writing this thing for Adrian, where he texted me the other day. We roast coffee together and he's like, dude, I want to get into IoT stuff. What's this Matter thing about? I was like, oh, I'm not sure exactly what this Matter thing is about. I just haven't looked at it super closely. But the best way to get into it is to just build something. And then I
Mhm.
realized when I said that, that's easy for me at this point, 3 years into it, with the help of like 30 people who've held my hand for the past couple of years. For him, he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Build something.
Yeah.
He can physically, he can weld anything. He can like all the physical stuff he can do, but this nerd stuff, he's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean a Raspberry Pi?
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
the tutorial was
You
for
need
him, basically.
to ease in for it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's like,
but
take this Pi and,
I mean,
flash this card. Yep.
you're you're 100% right, and I think there's a you have to meet a threshold, or you have to overcome some like barrier. There's like a barrier to entry there. The statement of like you just need a project has always been the one that's rung true for me. People like when I was working in offices at startups, you'd have these junior devs or interns come through, and they're like, "Oh, I want to learn X, Y, or Z. I want to learn how to do back end. I want to do front end." And my statement was always like, "You just need a project. Like you need something. Like sitting down and trying to like read this thing, look at tutorials or whatever."
Yeah.
Um, isn't going to be the like driver in your head to like solve the problems when you hit them. Like you have
Yep.
to have a goal
Yep.
out there that is like, I want to, IoT my coffee bags before I roast or
Whatever. I want
whatever.
to see if my sauna's hot. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
And having that clear goal gives you something to work toward and like navigate those challenges along the way. But if you're just going and saying like, I want to write a function that tells me 2 + 2 = 4, like, yeah, you'll probably get there, but it's not going to be an applied uh, means to get that stuff done.
Yeah. No, I'm like
But
all about nonstop
yep, yeah,
applied things.
same.
What is Heroku? I saw it a couple times. I know Helium used it. I don't know anything about it. Travis, now you might have me going down a rabbit hole. Heroku.
Oh,
Does
so
it sound
yeah,
like
Heroku it's basically a server. It's literally server. I think they still run on Amazon actually in the background, but
okay?
it's a means to plug a build pipeline directly into your GitHub, and so you can like interface with like publishing code directly through a CLI and stuff. It
Huh. I
it's a
wonder how
very
that's.
easy way to spin up a bunch of servers without writing sort of config scripts, although you end up writing config scripts anyway.
Huh.
It's,
Okay.
um,
Maybe I'll look into it.
it's probably I mean, for a new, you're already using Vercel. Vercel takes a lot of lessons from Heroku.
Got it.
And
Okay.
there's, yeah, so you'd probably not gain a whole lot, but we use it a
Okay.
bunch.
Yeah.
Just whenever we just need like a quick server for something, you pay $5 a month and you got another server for that thing, and then we pile those up until we're spending hundreds of dollars a month, and then we have to go prune back all these random ass things we've built. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the other thing that I see is like, what's one more subscription? And especially with these AIs, I'm still able to justify it by saying like, even at $60 a month for these 3 different things, maybe it's 70 now that Twitter has raised their fucking thing to $30 a
Mhm.
month for whatever their ridiculous thing is. But whatever, $70 a month for the ability to ask a thing and get like a really good answer across 3 different LMs. I don't see how
Great.
you complain about that.
Yeah. I mean, and if you ever need to, you'll go feed your credit card bill to an LLM and they'll tell you where to prune back. So it's an
Yeah,
investment in both ways.
I
Yeah.
hadn't thought of that, but I think that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got like this list, and the list is growing of things. I think it's called "What Can Monstra Do," which is the device I've got, like the local LM machine, and really it's like a stand-in for what can AI do for me in anything. And that list grows. Like it's not. I thought it would be something where I'm like, I'll just do like 4 things, and then those 4 things will be done, and I'll find something else. And it's like, no, it could do this. It could do this private news aggregation. It could do this, marketing thing. It can do this other thing. It can write all these codecs for me on MetSci. It could be this thing that like for MetSci users who are paying a premium for sure, to give them some premium service and say like, hey, here's my device. Write this codec that will fit into the grand schema or the greater what the fuck is it called? Schema?
Schema. Wow.
Schema? Yeah.
Yeah. Schema.
Of the like of
Scheme.
what I'm using.
Grand scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like almost every day I'm driving and I'm like, oh yeah, there's this one thing like, hey, I don't want to say because my fucking phone will turn on. SIRI. Uh,
Thank you.
like write this idea down, and I'll come home, and of course there's like this. Now there's this note of like, oh, you have another thing for Monster to do.
Yeah, I think it's a sign of a powerful tool, right? Like whether it's duct tape or a hammer or a 3D printer, like it's one of those things where like the better you understand it, the more applications that you find that it it gets that job done.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean, like I'm deep in 3D printer land. It feels like the same story
Well, what are you printing? Because
around.
you're always so good at that stuff. I always think whenever I have something, you'll laugh. Whenever I have something I want to print, I'm like, I should just ask Joey if he can build this for me because he'll be able to do it in a day and it'll take me weeks. And then I forget about it and go do something else. So you've missed like thousands of designs that I've not bothered you
Oh
with.
yeah. Uh, I mean, my time in Fusion, I think I equate it to like sitting down and doing a Sudoku puzzle or something. It's just like a Zen moment for me to like go sort of build something up and fire it off. But so
Okay.
I scaled. I have my old Prusa i3, and
Hmm.
then now there's the Prusa XL
Oh,
sitting
that's right.
next
Because
to
you
it.
bought that with crypto, right?
But
Let me see if I can make this bigger so we can. Yeah,
yeah,
there we
yeah.
go.
It's definitely messy in here, and
Oh,
Lord,
make
my hair
something every
needs
day. Look at that. That's cool.
yeah. Yeah, I've had that up in my house for like 15 years. Um, but yeah, that's the little 3D printer station. I'm probably going to get rid of my resin printer because it's just a mess. I don't enjoy using it.
Don't use it enough. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see
So
if I can do this and shrink you back down. There
yeah,
we go.
I gotta go in blurry mode to hide my hair.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. What else is going on in maybe in either Deepin or in kind of MetSci Helium Nerdland? One thing I've been thinking of is, and I don't think this is possible now, it's probably just a sign that I don't understand it, is how do I make the Meteor Scientific LNS open to something like Meshtastic? Like, how do I make that same thing serve people who are also interested in LoRa? And it may be
Right.
that it just ends up being like,
You got to talk to
meshtastic.mediascientific.
Star Watcher. He's
Oh, that's right, because
he's
he's way
he's
deep
been
into it.
he was kind of scheming like, could we use Helium as a basically a backhaul layer for when these nodes hit up
Yep.
whatever point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I think like some meshtastic on MetSci thing would be pretty interesting, and that was one of the things I was looking at. The other thing that I've seen or that I have questions about is on Helium. When I'm doing all this stuff, it's like getting a new sensor each time. It's a pain in the ass. There's a different codec. These codecs are structured differently, so some of them put like their payload in like a sub object, and now I'm using words I don't totally understand, but it means that at the end of it, when you're trying to get that data into your database, you've got to go back and fuck with the codec every time. So what I would
Mhm.
love is either, I guess the easy way to do this would be to like statically put on the MetSci LNS every single codec for every single device pre-formatted so that it comes out the other end in a specific and structured way. And if you need to change it from there, you can. But what
Yeah.
I think I'd rather have is something a little bit more dynamic that goes back to the LLM things. It's like, hey, I just got this whatever SCM30 from Sensemo, the Sensemo wand.
Ooh,
Um,
yeah.
like,
Those guys. I gotta catch up with those guys.
yeah, yeah. Like, how does that work? Or not? How does that work? Like, can you make this work so that I don't have to fuck around with a codec and be like, oh yeah, there's this sub or this nested object or whatever it is, and it just works out of the box. I think that's the one of the things I'm seeing. And then the other piece
Yeah.
is that, to your point about you have to have a project, is like, what is a project for everyone or that anyone could use on Helium that is useful? And I just haven't found it like for every single person, or for most
Yeah.
people, something that'd be useful. Like, it turns out it's still, IoT is still like custom to your life.
Yeah, it is. And I think that is one of the challenges, but it is also, I think, one of the reasons I'm excited about the IoT working groups, like funding your grant,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully funding a bunch of other ones like that is like, here's how Nick did this temperature humidity thing.
Yep.
Or right, you did temp humidity. Um,
For
but
this
it's like
grant,
here,
I know
yeah,
for the grant, it's just a rainwater barrel. So it's like
okay.
basically it'll end up being, and I should probably buy this URL like is the rainwater barrel full or not.com, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, that's a really good proxy project for like, does the swimming pool need to be topped up or,
Yeah,
whatever. Like you can kind of go and, use a little bit of critical thinking and say, like, does this apply to the thing that I'm doing?
yeah,
In the same measure that like you could do a mailbox sensor, and then that can also go on a chicken coop, make sure that the door's closed or whatever. Like you can kind of take an idea like that, cattle gate, whatever, um, and apply those to your exact need.
yeah,
Um, so I think it's really cool when we start to have a variety of these tutorials out there. They are all going to follow some general set of steps, um, but it helps to illustrate the broader picture of the opportunity, sort of back to the like powerful tool part of it, right? Like
yeah,
you start to think a little bit more about how you can apply this across the spectrum. But
yeah, yeah. I'm still like, I look at the stuff that's the easiest for me to think of, and basically Apple has already done it, or Android has done it, where it's like, oh, how do I see where my wife is when she's driving around town? Not that I'm spying on her, but it's like, oh, she's going to do this route of picking up dry ice and going and getting treats and coming back. It's like, the phone already does that with like share your location.
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that is on my plans of doing next is, how do I have like a private map that's on my server at home? So when I'm on my computer, I go to whatever my local URL is. And Vortal was telling me about running my own DNS server and being able to do cool things with domains. So I don't know I don't know anything about that, but what I'm thinking is like, it'd be cool if I had my own private thing that has a map of all my vehicles, all two of my vehicles,
Mhm.
where it's like, this is where the vehicles are right now. And so I can just check it real quick, and without having Lee say like, hey, share your location real quick, only see where you are, is I'm like, oh yeah, she's at the dry ice. Cool. I've got 20 minutes to prep whatever packages for paleo treats, or she's down at the bakery. I've got 30 minutes or whatever it is.
Right.
So I think
I
like the
mean,
mapping thing is a big thing.
and some of those things, you get into the nitty gritty of it, and it turns out the Apple one is great when you're with your car, but when your car gets stolen, it's a terrible solution.
Not as good. Yeah.
And so like that's where I've found a lot of success with IoT and LoRaWAN is because it does solve some of those problems. And I was talking about this Seed Studio thing,
Yep.
like I want to get GPS on there. To me, that's I want to go build basically a little sleeper GPS tracker that replaces the dome light in my truck. So it's just
Ooh.
always up there, always powered. You flick it on, you got a little LED to turn the thing on and off. But those are
Yeah.
the
It's like,
kind of
oh,
things
so I
we should be
see.
cooking up. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
uh,
but fucking voice to hardware. It's coming.
right, exactly.
It's coming. Uh, Satoshi Nakamoto, is the Helium Bobcat 300 working with the Helium network or not? We should go back to Helium. This is it's funny
Yeah,
because for me, like, I'm a dick about this, and I'm like, how do you not know this? But I should be more kind and say like, hey, if you haven't been paying attention, you wouldn't know this. And especially if you're coming back in a deep in now, and you were part of Helium in the banger days, you're like, dude, why isn't my Bobcat working?
yeah. As far as I have heard lately, there should be nothing with the Bobcat that would keep it from working. Minus, like, if you have not onboarded it yet, there's going to be a lack of credits there because Bobcat as a company hasn't kept that funded. Um, However, they are still phoning home and getting firmware.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
The,
Okay.
the
So,
ones that are out there that, yeah, the way they designed it was basically just to check in with the GitHub repo that serves Gateway RS. And so
oh,
as
nice.
new releases come, they just grabs them, um, which is, yeah, that's a reasonable design.
Yeah.
Um,
I got to look at my
no,
DIYs and see if they're doing that as well. Or I think I used to need to update them, because when there's updates coming out like every 2 days, I would have to get on every day and be like, oh yeah, pull this thing. And I forget if I ever built something. I don't think I did. Maybe Germ helped me build something and I forgot about it.
yeah, the nice thing is that Gateway RS has been in a pretty stable state ever since the Solana migration. It has done basically a very particular job, and it tries to stay focused on that.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, Satoshi, if that doesn't quite answer your question, I would encourage you to ping in the general channel,
Hmm.
probably, or questions and answers on the Helium Discord.
Yep.
Um, but with the big caveat that as soon as you do that, you will get DMs from scammers that are trying to separate you from your tokens.
Yeah.
So ignore the
Maybe,
DMs.
and we'll kind of wrap this up because I know we're at time for both of us. is this is another grant that either IoT working group or mobile or something else does to say like, hey, build us like a Helium LLM that answers these questions. That if someone comes to helium.com and they're like, hey, what's going on with my Bobcat 300? This thing is a good way to do it and say like, hey, that's like, you don't get like, be careful of all the DMs. You're going to get scammers, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. That is probably a good there is an LLM in the Helium Discord that you can talk to.
Is there?
Um,
Shit, I haven't been
yeah,
there before.
the Moken team built one, and I think Keenan got that all integrated.
Oh, badass.
Um,
Well done, Keenan.
but yeah, we continue to iterate on that idea. There's a whole thread going right now about trying to do some stuff inside the Helium docs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
For docs for sure.
yeah, we just need cleaner docs so we don't train it on all of the wrong data and then send it on the wrong path. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're cooking. That's part of what I'm all fired up about today is getting some improvements there, um, and yeah, make this easier.
Okay. Oh, cool. The community's helping each other out on this HNT and IoT thing. I was actually thinking the other day, I was like, I've got a bunch of mobile and IoT. What should I do with it? And I think my default answer is like the best answer in crypto is like, don't do a fucking thing. Just leave it alone. But I could be
Yeah.
wrong there. That's certainly not financial advice. So,
Uh, my experience is whatever I do, the market's going to do the opposite. So
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't give any advice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably a good way to do it. All right, dude, we're at time. I know you got shit to do. I got shit to do as well. Super cool to see you today. And I guess we'll check in with you next week. And I'll see you on the Discords and the interwebs.
Sounds great.
Anything else?
Take it
Anything else
easy.
that you wanted to hit?
No, we'll hit it next week.
All right.
There's always
Fucking
stuff to do.
rock and roll,
Okay.
buddy. Thanks, guys. Thanks for
All
watching.
right.
Lights.
See ya.